Hello everyone. Today we're going to be going over Acheron character creation. So sadly, we already did this with a couple newbies, and it was a nice Q&A session, but it did not record the audio, so we're doing it again with the lessons learned and questions asked from that session, so I'm going to try and make it quick, to the point, and get through everything that everyone had questions about. So first things first with character creation. We have the sheet, which is broken up into 5 parts. So it's broken up into the 5 parts that you'll use and fill out in sequence. But the sheet itself is set up so that your eye will go to what you generally need the most. So that would be your attributes and skill ranks, and then your HP, evasion, statuses, sanity, etc., weapons and armor, your abilities, and then merits and flaws. So let's look at a sheet. My name is Joe, and I am the player, and we're going to make George, who is going to be a sort of high school athlete slash professor slash occultist. And of course, he's going to be starting at level 1 to keep things simple. He'll be a human, and for his background slash faction, we're going to say he's independent. And maybe one day I'll be able to spell. I am dyslexic, so bear with me when I'm typing things out. So the first thing we need to do is look at our different attributes and decide what scores we're going to put where. So we have everything that you'd normally see: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. And in the beta packet, we have a couple different ways of determining ability scores. So there is the base ability score system, which gives us a 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, and 9. So it's a solid range with everything being fairly balanced. You have that 9 in there, so you're going to be slightly worse at something, but that we think adds a little bit of flavor, and it can be easily raised up to a 10 with 1 character point. So nothing to really worry about. You can roll, so it's roll 4d6, take the 3 highest, and you get 1 extra roll, so it's a total of rolling 4d6 7 times. A lot of people like to do it this way. It can lead to some issues in party balance, but in Acheron, unlike in other games, your actual ability scores don't matter as much as they would in, say, D&D. And the third option is a point buy of 75 points, which would give you the same number of total points as you see in the base ability score. So we're going to use the base ability score, and we're going to fill those in really quick. But there's something I need to mention first. So as a human, we have our current caps on all our ability scores. So for humans, it's 18s in everything. So, you know, pretty across the board balanced. And that's, the cap is how high you can raise your ability scores. So we have 116. I'm going to put it into intelligence because we want to be a smart professor-like person. Then we have 14. I'm going to put that into constitution, which you might not really expect, but I want to be pretty hardy. So we have 16, 14, and then it is 13, 12, 11, and 9. So I'm going to go ahead and put my 13 in, let's go with dexterity. We'll put our 9 in strength. And we have a 12 and 11, so we'll put the 12 in charisma. Not 122, only 12, and then 11. So with 1 character point, we could raise these scores. So I could raise this 16 to 17 or 18, with 1 point being 1 extra point in your ability score, but we can't go over whatever our cap is. And humans, we scroll down a little bit, I'm jumping past some stuff, but the basic human has a cap of 18 in each, whereas, say, the Warborn for strength, dex, and con is a cap of 20, but their intelligence cap is lower and the charisma cap is also a little lower. And that is in the lore due to the type of culture that they have. and also because they're a more isolated group that's been trained for war, thus Warborn. So we have our ability scores, we have our caps due to our pedigree. I am not going to raise any, so I'm just going to plug in the modifiers. So we have 16 plus 3, 14 plus 2, 11 plus 0, 12 plus 1. Not doing this really in any strategic way. And then minus 1 for that 9 on strength. So we got our ability scores, our caps, our modifiers, and the next thing we need to do is pick a primary and a secondary ability score. So I'm a bookish person, so my primary is going to be in intelligence. And then constitution is my second highest, but I'm not going to make that my second ability score because you don't have to do things that way. I could have actually picked strength as my primary if I wanted. And the reason that picking your primary and secondary is important is for two things: skill ranks that you get per level and your abilities that you can buy. So for skill ranks, scroll down a little bit. So see, select primary and secondary ability scores, merits and flaws, because they can change things, and then choose your skills. We're going to choose our skills first and then come back to merits and flaws because I'm not choosing any skills for this character, any merits and flaws for this character that would influence my skills in any way. So, skill ranks per level. I am intelligence based, so that will give me 4 ranks per level. And then if I was constitution, that would give me another 2, so a total of 6. But I'd really like to have 7, so I think my secondary is going to go into charisma. So I'm going to be intelligence and charisma focused. So while constitution is my second highest score, it's not my secondary ability score. And this also affects the different, that's merits and flaws, the different abilities that you can have. So abilities, we have general abilities, but then we have abilities based on your different attributes. So for instance, strength as the unarmed tree, you have, it can be bought with strength, dexterity, or general points. Now general points are anything. So these first two, the proficiency unarmed and the fists of fury, which gives you a higher damage on your actual punches, can be bought with any sort of points. But you get to hardened body, where your fists do even more damage, a d8 rather than a d6, and that can only be bought with strength or dexterity at a cost of 2 character points. However, you can still buy this if strength or dexterity is not your primary or secondary ability score, or attribute score, as I should be calling it. So if these are not your primary or secondary, so being intelligence and charisma focused, it won't be, I would have to spend 4 character points to get hardened body. And the reason for that is because people who go down these trees, we want to give that extra bonus and have some restrictions on other people. So if we just had it where everything was the same price no matter what, everyone would choose intelligence as their primary score because it would give you 4 skill ranks per level. No one would choose constitution ever because it only gives you 2 skill ranks per level. So that's our reasoning there. We go over here and we have 7 skill ranks to mess with because it's our primary plus our secondary times level. We have spent 0, we have 7 remaining, but now we need to, as part of character creation, pick the 9 skills that are going to be our actual trained skills. So these are things that you have been doing and training for a long time. For instance, drive. We're going to select drive, and we're going to put 1 point into drive, even though it's not our primary or secondary, and that gives us 1 plus 1 is a 2 to drive. The reason we're doing that is because if we didn't have this, it would be very difficult to drive a car. And we're living in a world with cars. We are George, independent professor from a major city in one of the central districts, so highly populated megalopolis cities. He needs to know how to drive to get where he's going. He does research on the side out in one of the other districts, definitely has a car, needs to be able to drive. He's not a stunt driver by any means, but he can drive. So now we've picked drive, so we need to pick 8 more. I'm going to pick Sneak. I'm going to pick 2 knowledges. I'm going to have one be religion, and then the other be history. So he's more of a historian. So that is 4 now that we have picked. Sense motive is good. Listen is good. I want him to be an occultist. So 4, 5, 6, 7. We're getting close. So he's going to be an occultist. Let's go with persuasion. And then one more. We have a high endurance or a high constitution, so we might as well select endurance. And the reason that these trained skills are important is because, say, disabled device. I don't have disabled device whatsoever. I walk in and there's a bomb affixed to a wall, and I'm about to trigger it if I step off this pressure plate. I don't know how to disable that. I have no experience with anything like this. I don't know traps. Let's say instead of knowledge religion, add knowledge. Let's go with explosives. It's very specific. But we also have demolition as a skill. So if it's an actual bomb, I could use my knowledge explosives or my knowledge demolition. But say it's a bear trap, I have knowledge explosives, it's a bear trap. I don't know how to deal with a bear trap. I don't have disabled device. Maybe the GM will be nice and allow me to roll just an intelligence roll, so d20 plus 3, and try and disable it that way. Or they'll say, well, it's disabled device, roll a dex check, or it's disabled device, you don't have that skill, roll just a flat d20, it's a DC 15. So if you roll above 15, you're good, but it's going to be 25% chance at that point. It's a little bit iffy. Maybe someone else in the party is better for doing that. Anyway, let's switch this back to religion. I think I have all 9 now, but I only have 7 points. And that's why I just went over everything I did. So I have the 7 points, but I have 9 trained skills. The reason that they're trained is because I will add points into them later with this 7 each level, but also because no matter what, I get my modifier. So my sneak gets a +1 because it's a dex check, and I'm trained in it, which means that I, even if someone had a dexterity of, say, like +5, would probably be just as good at sneaking as that person. And that's something that GMs have to keep in mind depending on how they're allowing people to make rolls. And we have made sure that everything is fairly modular as far as what GMs can do. So I'm not even going to put a rank. And this one, I'm going to get 2. So it's 2. And that 2 is coming from my modifier. I should have put, this gets a 1 from the modifier and a 1 from a rank. So a total of 2. But like I was saying, for GMs, we have a lot of modular stuff and how that they can choose to run their games. So let's just fill these in real quick. I'll put 1 into religion, 1 into history. So it's 3. So I got pretty good knowledges there. I've spent 1, 2, 3 out of my 7 skill points. So I think I'm free to spend 1 more everywhere else. 6 and 7. So I have a +0 to wisdom. So that is not great whatsoever. But it will show us how merits can be very, very useful in a minute. Oops, I meant to get sense motive instead of spot, but you know what? I'll live with that mistake. I'll take spot. So now we have our skills. And another thing to keep in mind, so my intelligence is a 16, but my cap is an 18. So my intelligence score can never be above an 18. There's no way for it to happen at all whatsoever. It's the restraint of the race that I picked. But my skills are based on my actual score cap. So if I wanted to, instead of saying put 1 rank in history, 1 rank in religion, I could go up here to my constitution and put 2 ranks. I could have saved all 7, put 7 in there, which I'm not going to do because I like balanced characters. But you could put as many ranks as you want to up to your attribute score. So I can have 16 ranks in any trained intelligence skill that I have. But my actual score can never be above an 18, and that's how we deal with some of those high roll issues that you see in things like Pathfinder, where someone is like, well, I have these feats, so that gives me a total +5, and I'm in this position, so I get +2, and then my skill is a +26, and then I roll d20, and you're like, whoa, 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 what just happened? And they're like, it's a 52, and you're like, okay, you're sneaking, there's no way anyone can see you. There's no way that that's happening. We cap that off, so yes, you can roll, say you have an 18, so you have 18 ranks, plus your 4 from having a score of 18 and +4 for the modifier. So you can roll up to a 42 as a critical success. But that's more of a level 20 thing, or you really just pumped all your skills into one thing, and that's the one thing that you're good at. So someone else is more of a jack of all trades. You are just going into, say, occultism because you like to cast, and that's all you're good for. The other thing is we have different abilities and merits that increase the number of trained skills that you can have up to, I think the current maximum is 15. So if you want to be a more skills-based character, you can also do that. But we filled out our attributes and our skills, so let's go back here. Next step is merits and flaws. So we're going to go, because we kind of skipped forward, but we're going to go to basic human, got our ability score caps. We have our movement speed, which is 30 feet, so I'll just go fill in that real quick. It's over here, 30 feet, jumping around a little bit. Sorry if it's confusing, but that's not going to change, and I know that. And then we have hit die and starting hit points. So these are going to change. The starting hit points are going to change, but the hit die is going to forever be a d6. Now, this is for recovery. So say you take 4 damage. You do your long rest. You recover 1d6 of health for that long rest. Maybe it is all 4, maybe it's more, in which case it doesn't really matter, but maybe it's only 1. You're going to roll the d6 and find out, and that's why that's your hit die. But your starting hit points are always the maximum roll you could get on your hit die. So for us as a basic human, it's 6 plus our con mod. So right now, that would be, because our con mod is +2, is 8 total health. So in this game, for reference, a 9mm would do a d10 of damage. So you might take a d10 of damage and actually take the 10 and be like, oh no, my character's dead, this game's awful, why would I die so easily? But we do have a couple solutions for that. The first one is armor. So armor DR in our game halves, quarters, does minimal, and 1 damage. So, for instance, if I had a bulletproof vest, that would give me DR2 against piercing and slashing. So someone now shoots me with a 9mm, does 10 damage. Well, that is divided by 4, which is a little rough, but it would round to be 2 damage. So instead of taking the 10 damage, I end up taking 2 damage. Not too bad. But let's say I'm not wearing that bulletproof vest. I have no armor on. I'm sitting in a bathrobe, enjoying a cigar, listening to some sweet jazz. Someone busts in the room, shoots me with a 9mm. I take the 10 damage. But we have our Die Hard system where you can take permanent flaws. So I get shot. Say I get shot through the lung. I take the flaw, 1 lung. So now my movement speed is reduced, but I negate all that damage. So instead of instantly dying, I am shot in the lung. I am fine though. I will pull through this. I pull out my sword cane and I kill the intruder. And yes, I got a permanent flaw, but my character is still alive. So that's how Die Hard works. But let's go ahead and look at our racial merits. So being a basic human, I get privileged, which is nice because I get an extra character point for use at character creation. So I'm just going to take this, copy and paste it over. Now I have privilege. So the way it typically works is you take your level. So I'm level 1. So you get 3 times your level. So 3 total now, plus 3, because you get 3 automatically at character creation, and that gives you total character points. So I get +1 from privileged. So my total right now is 7. I have 7 remaining. Go back. Okay. Humans get a automatic flaw called Wounds of the Race War. So this is specific to our lore and our world. It means you get no charisma or no bonus to charisma checks, so you just roll flat d20s when dealing with Dark Leechers socially. That is a very rough flaw, and the reason for that is because there is a lot of distrust still between Dark Leechers and humans. GMs and PCs can roleplay it out, where maybe it's distrusting at first, but then you become friends, so you no longer get those negatives. However people want to do it, if GMs are running this world or this game in their own world, that might not apply. That's okay. We want people to be able to do whatever they want, but just keep in mind that some of these things are sort of lore specific, and if you're gonna mess with them, you should give humans a different flaw. So we got privilege, we have wounds of the race war, and now we can go look at other merits. But I want to look at Warborn real quick to do a side-by-side. So ability score caps for Warborn, strength, dex, and con are 20, intelligence is 16, wisdom's 18, charisma 16. And that's because of their background, the way they're brought up in the culture, stuff like that. They all have military training, which means they have proficiency in a weapon and focus in a weapon. Proficiency means that you don't have any negatives. A focus means that you have a +1 to attack rolls. They have War Never Changes. They may re-roll a violence-based sanity saving throw once per day. That's really good, especially if you're playing more of a brute, you are the enforcer type of character. And I'll get into sanity in a little bit. But they also have the flaw won't back down. If they flee combat, they must make a morality sanity save. If they fail, they take a d6 of sanity, and a d6 is really a lot. And I'll go into that in a little bit as well. But we'll skip past that and go down to merits. So we have a lot of nice merits and flaws. So merits cost CP, flaws will give you CP. I usually like to do flaws first. So let's see what we have. We have things like astigmatism, tinnitus, deadly allergies, which a lot of people like to take. So say you're deadly allergic to carrots. The GM might be mean and be like, all right, you're helping this farmer get all of his carrots to market because you just killed the demon that was threatening his farmland or whatever. So you got to deal with that. Or maybe they'll only use it in, hey, you have made a lot of enemies. So they found out about your carrot allergy, and now they're trying to poison you with carrot smoothies. Something like that. It can be as weird and wacky as you want to make it. There's also disorders of the mind. Curious is one where you just have to make saving throws to not investigate weird things that happen. We have some curses. We have phobias, lesser, middling, and then also not in the beta, but greater enemies. So what should we take as a flaw? So weak to magic, I think, is kind of funny. Because if we're going to be a magic user, it's interesting that it would also be our weakness. So that's -2 to all saves versus all types of magic. So that's arcane, spirit, fey, demonic, eldritch. Any spell cast on us is going to be a bad time. It's not going to be fun whatsoever. So we'll just put that in. So that gives us 2 more. So now we're up to 9 total points because we took that flaw. And you'll notice the maxes here. So you can only have a max of 9 merit points used and a max of 9 flaw points gained. And the reason for that is because we don't want people just taking everything from the merits list or taking everything from the flaws list and then bumping all their stats up to 18s. There are some cases where you can go over these caps, but I'll get to that when I go over sanity. So, got our flaws. Now let's look at merits. Scroll up here. Sensitive is a great one for magic users. Sensitive means you get a psychic pool, which is bad for things like psychic vampires, which will be in the book, that can suck your psychic energy out of you. But it's really good because you have the uncanny ability to sense the supernatural. You make a psychic check to see if there's any supernatural activity, psychic powers being used, or other things that are not of the natural world. So you're an investigator, let's say, and you're investigating ghosts. So you go into a building where you know there are ghosts, and you can sense sort of what these ghosts feel. Are these ghosts angry? Are they longing for someone or something? Do they want to be released from their mortal tether? Whatever keeping them, well, I guess it's their incorporeal tether, whatever's keeping them in this world. You can sort of figure that stuff out, and how much is sort of up to your GM, but it is a great merit to have for anyone who's doing anything like that. It does give you a psychic pool though, which is con score plus primary modifier plus Mancer level, so we don't have any levels in Mancer, so it's just going to be con score, which is 14, plus primary, which is 3, so 17 will be our total. And if that gets drained completely, you go unconscious. So we're not going to be spending it, but again, Psychic Vampires would kind of be bad. So now we only have 8 points remaining. Let's get one more merit. So Great Memory is another one that I really like and I think would be great for this character. You can easily recall most things you have seen or heard and gain a reroll per long rest on any check that involves memory. So knowledge history, we could argue that this works. Knowledge religion, we could argue that this works. Again, disabling device, if we had that, we could be like, but I remember in a manual, I'm going to use this reroll to do that. So there are definitely options. So we have Great Memory. We got 7 points. Some people like to get a lot of merits and a lot of flaws. I like to keep things a little bit more balanced. And for that reason, we're going to move on to abilities. So as I mentioned earlier, your abilities, skills here, are sort of broken up into different categories. So there's general, with general points. There's strength-based, con-based, dex-based, int-based, etc. And they're bought with primarily whatever ability that they're under. But then they might be bought also with general and also with something else. But at the bottom of these trees, it's always just, say, strength, for example, that can buy the final iterations of whatever is at the bottom of these ability trees. So we're con-based, and this is why I haven't really finished my calculations yet. I want to buy toughness twice. So toughness gives you +2 hit points. It can be bought with constitution or general points. It can only be bought twice with general points, 3 times if Constitution is your secondary, which it is for us, and 4 times if Constitution is your primary ability score. So this is going to give us a lot more survivability than we currently have buying this twice. So I'm just going to go over toughness times 2. I know how much it costs and everything, but you can definitely write that down. So now, instead of having 8 HP, we go up to having 12. So even if we get shot by that 9mm and dealt 10 damage, we're still up. We're still moving as a professor and ex-wrestler / track star in high school, let's say. So there's that. That cost us 2. We also have other things at Constitution, but I'm not going to mess with it. And I'm going to go down to Intelligence, because Intelligence is our main one. And the first thing I want to buy is Intelligent Design, which lets me base my Occult off my Intelligence score instead of my Wisdom score. So that does a lot for me for 1 point, because, I mean, look at my Wisdom. It gives me a +0, but now it's based off my Intelligence. Go over to Occult. Boom. +3. That means I'm rolling at a +4 for Occult. So that 1 point is really, really worth it. And it's not going to be worth it for everybody, obviously. It might have smaller benefits for some, but that's really worth it for me. So I have now spent 3 more points, so I got 4 remaining. 5. Yeah, okay, that's correct. I thought I miscounted something. My apologies. So let's look at what else we could use. This is another great intelligence tree. So this is our quote-unquote therapy tree, and I'm going to take this. So I'm going to take Pep Talk, which allows me to, when someone takes sanity damage, I can give them a quick pep talk, say, no, it's going to be okay. I know what you just saw. We all just saw it, but everyone's fine. We're all doing fine. And they regain a D4 of sanity. And then I'm also going to take Therapist, which allows me to actually act as a therapist for the group. This means I have been trained in basic therapy techniques, and I can talk to people, and those all cost 3, so I'm down to 1 point. I can talk to people in my group. It takes an hour of my free time for each of us. I can't do it more than twice per week for each person, but I can talk to them and get them to regain sanity after the fact. And I think this is a perfect time to pick up, let's just say, mind over matter real quick, because we're very intelligence-based with this character. Use your int rather than con modifier for saves against shock, bleed, and poison. Pretty straightforward, more combat-based. So mind over matter, I have 0 more points. Notice that I don't have any weapons proficiencies. I'm a professor. I'm going to use magic. I don't need guns. And I don't have any armor proficiencies. So don't need to worry about that. What I do need to worry about is I am the therapist. So I need to talk to you guys about sanity. So sanity is broken up into 3 different sections. So we have supernatural, which George is strong against. So if I take a supernatural sanity check, I just have to roll above a 7. We have violence. So if I see or do something violent, I need to roll above a 10 to not take sanity damage. And then something I'm weak against, which is morality. So this is a mature game, and there is a definite factor of there's some horrible things that can be portrayed in it and can really impact your characters, and it's important to work with both player and GM from both sides to figure out what everyone's okay with and not okay with. I'm going to use a fairly gruesome example of you see someone beating a child. That's a morality save. If you do nothing about that, maybe the GM says, well, now it's morality and violence, because you're just letting it happen. So I was going to say it's just morality, but now you need to make 2 rolls. So you're going to make a morality roll and a violence roll. Or if it's something very terrible happening, maybe it's just you're going to roll twice, and it's going to be morality twice because it's your weakest. So roll your weakest twice. And GMs can really modulate that and decide what they want to do. So say we roll that twice because we walked away from this poor kid and didn't help, and we take a total of 6 sanity damage. So we go up on our tracker here, and we go up to 6. So sanity is calculated by wisdom score times 5. I have an 11, so that's going to be 55 as my 55 as my total sanity. I just took 6. I am down to 49 sanity. That is not great. But I'm a therapist. I go to therapy. Everything's going to be okay. I go to therapy. I get 4 sanity back. So I move this tracker back by 4. And I get my 4 sanity back. So now I'm back at 53. Everything's going well. But let's say you're doing more of a dungeon crawl, a lot of bad stuff is happening all the time, and you slowly tick up, or you just take a lot of sanity damage all at once. Say you take 10. So you take 10. These pieces of glass are illustration of your character breaking under pressure. So you finally break, and you clear these once you reach 10, but you roll a d6, and maybe you get a merit, maybe nothing happens, but you're fairly likely to get a flaw. So I am down to 45 sanity, and I took all of that, and now I get the flaw of mentally shattered. -2 to intelligence. So intelligence cap. So now my intelligence cap is 16. That really sucks. I can't ever be more intelligent. I have an intelligence-based character. But I didn't take the time. I really let people down, so I took all that sanity. We do have ways to negate sanity, so you only take half. So say I am strong against supernatural, then violence, then morality, I investigate ghosts. There's another character, he's a beat cop, he's really strong against violence, then morality, but weak against supernatural. We both go into the same haunted house. I have sensitive, I know that these spirits, these ghosts aren't going to harm us, they just want to be released from whatever is tying them to this place. Ghost pops out of a wall, flies right through me, I get that chill, I take minimal sanity damage. I take, say, 3. On the other hand, the character, the beat cop that's weak against supernatural, he takes 2 sanity checks because the ghost passes through him and then he turns around and sees another ghost. So it's 2 right back to back. He's very freaked out. He's going to take 6 sanity damage, but instead of taking the 6, he decides to scream, cover his ears, and run out the door. Because we have RP things that you can do when you take sanity damage to have the damage that you would take. So we both end up only taking 3. There's a lot of character stuff that can happen there. Also, this is a good way of categorizing NPCs. So whatever you're strong, middling, and weak against. So me, I'd be an SVM. Someone might be morality, violence, supernatural. So MVS, etc., etc. So it's really easy to just take an NPC, jot those down real quick, and have a general feel for what they're prepared for and what they've experienced. Because if you're strong against violence, you've experienced violent things. If you're weak against violence, that means that maybe you just don't have the stomach for it. And that's how sanity works. And you can also run this a little different. So say I took that 10 and then I take 3 more. So I'm only at 42 sanity after this long mission. But then I go to therapy and I gain 4 back. So you can do it where, all right, this takes off 3 ticks, but it can't take off more than 3 ticks. So that's stuck the way it is. And a GM can decide whether you only get that 3 back or if you get the 4 back. So that's another option we have to make things easier or harder in the game. Hopefully that all makes sense. So we've got our sanity figured out, got mind over matter, that's good. We didn't take this flaw because nothing's actually happened yet. But wait, didn't I want to be a magic user? So I go down to magic, and to be a magic adept costs 3 points. Oh no, I've messed up. I have to redo my character a little bit. Or I just go and I'm like, I need 3 more points. I really want to use magic. Well, let me take another flaw. Terror. You are crippled by your phobia. If you are forced to be in the presence of anything closely related to that which you fear, you must make a sanity check. I'm going to take Terror to get those 3 points that I need, be able to use magic, and I'm going to go with Clowns. Because who doesn't hate clowns? But now, I get Magic Adept. And we're going to be a Demonic Caster. So, now we have a pretty fleshed out character. Next thing I need to do is go pick my spells for being demonic. So, I get a tier 1 spell or ritual. I'm going to go with a spell. And I'm going to go with Green Flame. Now, demonic is really flashy, very quick, high damage, high risk, high reward. So for a standard action, which would be like shooting a gun, I pay 1 of my hit points to set someone on fire for 4 stacks of burn. And the way burn works is if it's 4 stacks, it lasts for 4 rounds. They take D1 or D4 fire damage first round, 2d4 second round, 3d4 third round, 4d4 fourth round. You set someone on fire and they're just left to burn, they're going to die. We have a combat maneuver called Stop, Drop, and Roll, where you use your full round action to stop, drop, roll, and put yourself out. Which, saves you from burning, but if someone's also shooting at you with a machine gun, it's maybe not the best use of your time if there's water nearby or something like that. So I'm going to take a Green Flame. And you can also use it twice. So I could pay 1 HP, use my standard action, roll my occult over the risk, which the risk is only 5. The risk is very low. And then pay 2 more HP to use my secondary action to then lob another thing of Green Flame. And this is actually lobbing it, so you need to roll an attack roll to do this. It technically counts as a thrown weapon. So I'll be rolling my dex, which isn't great, but it's 4 stacks of burn. So if you hit someone, it's very strong. You can also use it to just set things on fire, light up a room, things like that. So it is also utilitarian. So tier 1 spell, Green Flame. And you will get an extra spell every level, and since we use character points, people don't technically have to go by level. You can give people points for good RP, you can give people points for doing really cool things in combat, you can give people points for completing certain sections of quests, and throw the leveling system totally out the window. It's just a guideline. But every 3 character points someone gets because of all the downtimes that they're using, probably to find spells and learn spells, you get a new spell each level or ritual, and then you can learn a tier above what you already have learned. So I know Green Flame, so that means I can go to rituals on my next level, and Arrest for Sore Flesh is a tier 2 ritual. But because I have a tier 1 spell, I have enough know-how to then learn a tier 2 ritual. And that's how that works. And also, it depends again on what the GM really wants to do, but standard, there are spells in the world, there are people that can teach you, but it is fairly rare. So if you spend your time in-game, instead of going to therapy, let's say, and taking that sanity damage, but finding a demonic caster who teaches you to summon demons, then you're getting that boon. So we got Green Flame. Our character is at a total of 12 points, 0 remaining. So technically, this would be a level 4 character right off the bat. But that's because we took these flaws. So if I ever run into a clown and he's trying to hit me with a stick, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to take a lot of sanity damage. That's going to be bad. Worse is if he casts magic at me. Worse is if he's an illusion made by a Fey caster who's then trying to chase me with a stick, because I can't tell he's an illusion, then I take the sanity damage, I'm fleeing in terror, everything's terrible. But at least I can remember everything that I saw in a room, essentially. So the last thing we have to fill out is our weapons, none, and then armor. So I'm going to wear light armor. That's down here, I believe. We didn't go into Mancy's. They can be pretty straightforward, but if people want to ask, we have a Discord that we're in, and please ask any and all questions. So no weapons, but we are going to get some armor, and we're just going to get a flak jacket. It's light, it has no prerequisites, I don't have to have an armor proficiency, and it gives me DR1 against piercing. So that is things like bullets or someone trying to stab you with certain kinds of knives. So armor bonus is 1, and it is piercing. So now, if someone shoots me, I'm sitting, just waiting. Someone shoots me with a 9mm, does 10 damage. Well, now it actually does 5. I have 12 health. That's not even half my health. And I think that explains sort of how this becomes a more and more survivable game. And also remember, we have Die Hard, so do get shot, goes through my lung. I lose 5 movement speed because now I have half a lung there, but I still don't die because I don't take that 10 damage in the first place. So damage resistance, DR1, burst, piercing. This box does not work as it should. This is all beta stuff, so please bear with us. Initiative is just your dex mod, so I get a +1 to my initiative. My evasion is 10 plus dex mod, so I'll have 11. Don't have any statuses right now. I have all that HP, and now I have a fully built out character. And hopefully this is fairly easy to do ultimately. It does take a little bit of time, has a couple steps. I can really fly through this. I went a little slower than I would normally because I'm explaining stuff, but I can get this done. I mean, it's not really touting anything because I am a dev, but in 20 minutes I can have a very fleshed out character done. And the things I think that really help to flesh it out are your race that you pick, your pedigree that you pick, the scores and how you distribute them, how you set up your sanities in these 3 different categories, and what abilities, merits, and flaws you get. So I am a professor, was a high school athlete, ran track, was a wrestler. I grew up in a big city. I'm fairly privileged. I drive around. I can feel the psychic energies of ghosts and things like that, which got me into the occult. I have always been really good at studying. I've always had a horrible fear of clowns ever since my parents took me to the fair and a clown got squashed by an elephant or something awful like that. I've always been weak to magic. It's one of the reasons that I wanted to study it. I always wanted to help people, so I learned how to be a therapist. I'm technically a professor of history, but I got my master's degree, let's say, in psychology. For defense, I'll put on a flak jacket. The city is fairly tough if I know I might be getting into something. Put on the flak jacket, but I'm not generally worried because I'm a hefty person. But mentally, I've taken a lot of hits over the years, and I only have 55 sanity, so I gotta watch that. I gotta make sure that I go home, I pet my dog, I go to therapy, I go out to drinks with friends, and I really keep myself sane through all of the crazy studies and adventures that I'm gonna have. And that, in a nutshell, is Acheron character creation. I hope it was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and if anyone has any questions, please message us on any of our social media, through the website, through the Kickstarter, which is live right now for another couple weeks. And then, of course, we have our Discord, which can be found through the website and through the Kickstarter right now. And that is where we will be hanging out. People are looking for games to try out this system, and where you can ask any questions. I'm willing to jump into voice chat with people if you want to ask anything. And the last note I'll leave on is this is a pretty gritty game with a lot of mature themes, and I really hope that it is something that people are looking forward to explore in a lot of different ways. So thanks for watching, and see you later.